Okay, here we go. Reviewing for our Chapter 5 test. Well, we have been analyzing data, mainly by looking at our SOCCS, our centers, our spreads, our outliers, our context, and our shape of our graphs. We begin the chapter by looking at mean, median, and mode. And so on your test, you are going to be asked to find those things and the range. Next, we looked at stem and leaf graphs, and they showed us a lot about the shape and kind of possibly where the modes of the graph are, whether it was skewed left or right. We saw that even more when we looked at box and whisker graphs, a kind of more of a horizontal way to look at the shape of the graph. Finally, we calculated the standard deviation. And that showed us kind of in one number how compact the data was around the mean. The smaller the number, the tighter the graph, the closer they were to the average, to the mean. We also looked at histograms. I'm not going to have any histograms on the test, but because it looks an awful lot like a stem and leaf graph. All right, and finally we looked at using words, vocabulary, English language, to compare those 5 characteristics that we looked at. So you're going to get some data about fast food, and you will have to do these things on the fast food. So this is what the test looks like. It's kind of like a project. Everybody will have a different set of data sets, but we'll all be doing the same things. Now, how do you know which sets to work on? Well, I'm going to be sending to you each of you will get a list of 3 numbers. And that's going to tell you in the data set how to know which to look for. All right, in this case, if you got 4, 2, and 1, that means you would look at, and let's come down here. So you would look at 4, 2 from set 1. All right, if it was set 2, if it was 4, 2, 2, you would look at these sets down here. All right, and so if this was your set, you would be looking at the McDonald's and the Burger King's supper in the first set. All right, here are the things that you will be doing. As I outlined above, you'll be doing the mean, median, mode, and range of each set by hand, stem and leaf graph, again by hand, each one, box and whisker plot by hand, standard deviation. This, by the way, you can do by hand or you can use a spreadsheet. If you do it by hand, I will give you extra credit in terms of your calculations, okay? So that's a little extra credit opportunity there in the 4th one. Then you will conclude with 4 different statements comparing shape and skewness. That's the first one. Compare the centers, and then compare the standard deviations, compare any outliers or modes as well. All right? Do that in 4 concluding statements. Make sure you use sentences. All right? That'll be 10 points. So each one of these categories is 10 points. All right. Make sure you show your work. Now, I picked 2 sets of numbers. I've already done 1 set. As you can see, it's on the left, Arby's. I kind of made this up. It's not actually Arby's, but I just put that up there for the fun of it. And the right one is KFC. Please make sure you label yours correctly. You can certainly put them side by side or one after the other. I'm doing side by side so that I can kind of look at them when I'm all done and I can compare them. So here we go. I'm going to do the KFC set. First of all, I'm going to calculate the mean. And I know Mr. Larson wants me to show my work, so I'm going to show my sum divided by n. In this case, the sum is 1,119 divided by 10. So my average is, my mean is 119. And in this case, we're measuring calories. By the way, these are 10 different orders that were placed at a fast food joint at that particular time, whether it's supper in the evening or lunch at noon. Median. Where is the median value? Well, you'll have to list them in order. You'll have to do that for one later on, and I've already done that on a separate piece of scratch paper, and I got 105.5. Again, if you look down here, I kind of put them in order, and my two middle numbers were 102, 109, so I added those two numbers up, divide by 2, and that's where I got my 105.5. Okay, mean, median, and then mode. Well, there is no repetition, so there is none. I do want to point out, though, that in this set, I do notice that there's 2 that are in the 70s. So I've got 2 that are in the 70s and 2 that are in the 100s. So even though I don't have individual modes, I do have 2 little groupings going on. And range. What is my smallest to largest? Well, I think the largest out there is 224 minus 78, smallest, and I get 146, I believe. Let me double check that. 4, 8, and 4, 2, yeah. 1, yep, okay. 146 is my range. So I'm going to use that range now to help me find intervals. Now in this case, I've already set up my intervals, but in your case, when you do the problem, and the reason I've already set mine up is I wanted my intervals to match in both of them, okay? But here's the work that you would do for intervals. So we take our range, 146, and we divide it by 10. All right, that gives me 14.6. So that tells me if I round that up, I could go to 20 or 30. 20 would be a finer sifting, 30 would be a larger grouping. So I'm going to go intervals of 30, and that's going to give me 6 groupings. Be careful when you do this. Make sure that, notice I didn't go from 60 to 90 because that would be 31, right? So I went 60 to 89, and likewise from 90 to 119. All right, so now you're going to go through and then mark it up with how many are in each category. And let's see, from 60 to 89, I think I've got 2. Actually, 3. That one, and that one. And then in 224, the largest one is way down here. 91 and 109 and 102 are all in that second category. And then I've got a 120 and a 145 in that category, and a 159. Now, before I move on, I want to make sure I've got 10 tally marks in that list, and I do, so I've got them all. And, all right. One of the things we can see in this tally is that my data is skewed to the smaller numbers, yeah? There's more down here, it kind of tails off. So my graph is skewed to the right because these are the larger numbers down here at the bottom. If I look at my other graph, it has a similar feature, not quite as much as that one. It too is skewed. It's a little bit flatter, but it is skewed to the left because there's a few more on this end than there are on the bottom end. All right. Next, I want to make a box and whisker graph. So you're going to have to put them in order, and I have already done that. The next thing I need to do is kind of break up my graph in terms of number line. And so I'm going to say this is going to be 50. And this will be 100. And 150. And 200. And I don't think I'll need 250 because my graph doesn't go that high. All right. So again, we mark the minimum and the maximum. And then we need to mark the quartile 1, quartile 3, and I'm going to go ahead and mark those Q1, Q3, max, and min. And I've already got the median up above. All right, so 78. Well, 75 is kind of the halfway point there, so 78 would probably be about right there. 224. So 225 is the halfway point, so 224 is probably about right there. 83, it's going to look not too far from there. 145, pretty close to 150. Oops, the median, I forgot, don't forget the median, 105. Yeah, 105. So pretty well close to 100. And then 224. All right, so we go ahead and draw our box. Draw our whisker. And now remember, we looked at the shape, and we can clearly see this graph here. Most of the data is on this side of the graph. You can see that slightly here. It isn't skewed as much. We do see the whisker as being longer on this side, right, than this side. But clearly my graph on the left. That's going to help me make some sentences, statements there at the end. All right. Last but not least, standard deviation. Again, you can do this by hand. We'd have to take each item minus the mean. So if you want to do it by hand, again, that'll be extra credit. You can go to your spreadsheet software and have it calculated out, or go to a calculator, whatever you want to do. Again, if I was doing that, I would take 119 is my mean minus 78, square that, right? And then I would go to the next item. And again, take 119, my mean, minus 79. Square that. We have to add all those up and then divide by n minus 1, 9, and then take a square root of all that. So if I do all that, I get approximately 46.01. If I look at my previous one, I can see I have a standard deviation of 55. So that illustrates that my data on the right is tighter. It's closer together to the mean than the one on the left. So I'm ready to write some statements here. Again, the first statement here would be that what did I call it? The KFC. The KFC data is more skewed left got to get this out of the way then what did I say, Arby's? All right. And we then will have to go on and make some more statements about the centers. So then again, look at your center data here, compare. You could choose to compare maybe the medians or the means, either one. You can see here that there's a general trend that these centers are larger than these centers. Yeah. So my graph for the Arby's has higher calorie counts. Okay. So then I would say something about the centers of Arby's are higher than KFC. All right. So that's what your test is done. Then when you're all done, all your 4 statements, turn them in. Boom. As long as you're showing your work and you're writing good sentences and doing good calculations, then you will get a very good score. Take your time. I'll give you the remaining of the week to complete this project. Feel free to check in. I can't tell you if it was done right or wrong, but I can tell you you're not complete. You still need to show that or the other, right? So don't feel like you're out there alone on this project, but have fun in analyzing some calorie counts from the different fast food joints.